黑色信物到手，灭绝神铠的鳞片。
敢夺我神眼族之物，必为我族之祭品。
铠甲鳞片就散落在此，怎能眼睁睁让它落入异族手中？在那儿，封魔灭神甲的部件已全部集齐。
Hello guys, welcome to the Alrasta channel to discuss and explain the exciting storyline of your favorite series, SwallowedStar episode 232. In the previous episode, after witnessing the sheer awesomeness of Luofeng's wings, Feng Long and Pan Ke Master hunted Luofeng down all the way to the cold air region just to snatch his shoe wings. The situation went from bad to worse when 5 Chaos Master, who had survived the Sea of Lava, showed up bearing a grudge and teamed up with them. Completely surrounded, Luofeng pulled a reckless maneuver, escaping into the extreme frozen lake zone and heading straight for the deadliest location of all, the 12 Abysses. While the other enemies backed off, Luofeng actually forcefully dragged 5 Chaos Master down into that deadly abyss with him. Luofeng decided to dive even deeper, spreading rumors of his own fake death to prevent a massive all-out war between factions trying to scramble for his treasures. In response to this incident, at the request of the Primal Chaos City leader, Huge Axe Creator personally stepped in, braving the danger to secure the treasures Luofeng supposedly left behind. So, what happens next? Alright, without further ado, let's jump straight into the story. The focus of the story shifts to the main palace of the Divine Eye clan. Inside the massive hall, 5 Chaos Master was using one of her clone bodies, giving off an aura and appearance completely different from her main body. She was there to hold a highly classified and important meeting with the strongest true god-level leader of their race, an absolute entity known as the Divine Eye True Master or the First True Master. It is well known that this leader's power is legendary, even rumored to be on par with Ancestor Yuan, since both of them are sitting at Tier 10. With a voice full of regret, 5 Chaos Master reported that her main combat body had just met its end in the 12 Abysses, located within the Blazing Water Lake territory. Her destruction was caused by Luofeng, a relatively new Universe Master from the human race. With reckless bravery, Luofeng dragged 5 Chaos Masters' body into the abyss, ultimately triggering mutual destruction for both of them. 5 Chaos Master openly admitted her negligence, realizing that her death happened purely because she had heavily underestimated Luofeng's strength. Responding to the report, the First True Master stayed completely calm and showed no anger. Instead, he used his divine power to grow various glowing plants around the hall, funneling that energy straight into 5 Chaos Master's body until her mental state fully stabilized. Once things calmed down, the First True Master asked about the fate of 5 Chaos Master's precious treasures that had vanished alongside her main body in the abyss. Based on 5 Chaos Master's calculations, most of her treasures were probably crushed to pieces by the extreme pressure at the bottom of the abyss. She believed that only 2 items had a chance of surviving: the black token from the ancient universe boat artifact, and her incredibly durable extermination godly armor. Aside from those 2, 5 Chaos Master also predicted that Luofeng's wing-type treasure most likely had the toughness to withstand the abyss's pressure. Hearing these details, the First True Master concluded that the existence of the Black Token and 2 other special supreme treasures was more than enough reason to mobilize the true gods of the Divine Eye clan to personally step in and join the hunt. Meanwhile, the focus of the story shifts back to one of the 12 Abysses, specifically the 9th Abyss that Luofeng had fallen into. Contrary to his enemies who assumed he was dead, Luofeng was actually still managing to stay alive amidst the ridiculously extreme conditions. Ever since he was first sucked into the abyss, his flying palace had been endlessly pulled and dragged by an overwhelmingly powerful suction force. The pull was totally brutal, making it not only hard for Luofeng to get close to the Black Token despite it being nearby, but also posing an absolute threat of death. If he lost focus or let his guard down even for a second, his body would instantly be ripped to shreds by the abyss's gravitational force. Because of this, Luofeng held himself back with intense patience for the time being, simply waiting for the perfect golden opportunity to make his move. After being tossed around for what felt like an eternity under the 9th Abyss's suction pressure, his flying palace was finally dragged into a much more stable area, where the deadly pulling force dropped drastically. Realizing this was the moment he had been waiting for, Luofeng immediately geared up to spring into action. When the surrounding terrain suddenly transformed into a scorching sea of flames, Luofeng didn't waste a single second and immediately seized the opportunity. His first move was to unleash the power of his Golden Country, a domain technique he used to scan and map out the layout stretching far ahead of him. Once he made sure the route was safe, he stretched out his beast god arm to grab the black token floating not far away, effortlessly securing the precious key. With the black token now in his hands, Luofeng held on to high hopes that 5 Chaos Master might have left her other valuable treasures in a secret room, a dimension that could only be accessed using the authority of that specific token. Not long after, the extreme environment around him shifted again, this time changing from a burning region of fire into a freezing aquatic zone. The cold here was believed to be just as extreme as the frozen lake thunderbolt fire he had crossed before. Even though the conditions were torturous, the temperature hurdle wasn't a huge deal for Luofeng, because his star tower possessed absolute durability that completely neutralized the freezing cold. In the middle of this silent journey, Luofeng instructed Babada to run a database check and see if there were any location markers or hazard warnings regarding these parts of the Ninth Abyss. But unfortunately, after Babada did a thorough scan, she dropped the fact that the area they were exploring was an unrecorded blind spot that wasn't even covered in Giafanzi's map. The exploration continued as Luofeng slowly navigated the bone-chilling flow of cold water, which soon led him straight into a deadly golden storm zone. The golden storm hid terrifying dangers, as its wind vortexes packed unbelievably strong pressure, even claimed to be capable of wiping out a Universe Master's physical body in the blink of an eye. The flying palace Luofeng was riding wasn't spared from the storm's impact either, starting to experience a series of violent shakes as the wind pressure battered its defenses. When Luofeng tried to reactivate his Golden Country domain to scan the path ahead, he hit a massive roadblock. Other than the objects right within his direct line of sight, almost the entire remaining area couldn't be detected by his Golden Domain. This scanning limitation stripped Luofeng of his ability to predict what hidden threats might hit him the very next second. Facing such unpredictable conditions, he decided to slow down his speed and press on with his guard all the way up. In the midst of the blinding roar of the storm, Luofeng's sharp perception picked up on an object giving off a familiar aura. By steering his palace closer to the center of the storm, he could clearly see that the floating objects were 3 scale fragments from the Extermination Godly Armor, the very armor previously worn by 5 Chaos Master. Without wasting any time, Luofeng quickly maneuvered his beast god arm to scoop up the 3 fragments. The Extermination Godly Armor hadn't actually been crushed to dust in the abyss. Instead, after 5 Chaos Master died, the armor shattered into thousands of scale fragments that were now scattered across random locations. Babada thought this was a huge shame, considering the Extermination Godly Armor had a massive reputation and was ranked just a step below a supreme true treasure. Responding to her, Luofeng stayed calm and optimistic, stating that this wasn't an absolute dead end. To him, the situation simply meant he had to put in way more effort to hunt down all the scales scattered everywhere, until he successfully pieced them back together into a complete set of protective armor. Fired up with determination, Luofeng began collecting the armor fragments. Elsewhere, as Luofeng steadily secured more scale fragments, 5 Chaos Master started feeling something weird in her consciousness. She realized that her soul connection traces to the black token, as well as some crucial pieces of her Extermination Godly Armor, were starting to snap and fade out of her senses. Meanwhile, inside the storm vortex, Luofeng didn't stop moving at all. He kept maneuvering, gathering scale after scale, mostly hidden behind the raging golden storm, while firmly cementing his stance that he would absolutely never let such an incredible supreme treasure fall into enemy hands. That was his main drive for being so dead set on reassembling the armor and taking it home in perfect condition. The severing of those energy connections quickly stirred up suspicion in 5 Chaos Master's mind. She strongly believed that another true god must have stumbled upon her treasures and forcefully claimed dominance over them. Fortunately, 5 Chaos Master was still stuck on the idea that her killer was dead, so she didn't suspect for a second that the entity currently hoarding her treasures was Luofeng, who was actually still very much alive. As his search in the Ninth Abyss dragged on, Luofeng began facing a frustrating reality. Even though the number of scale fragments he had managed to collect reached an insane amount, it still wasn't enough to build the complete armor frame. Despite having no clue exactly how many more scales he needed to find, Luofeng flat out refused to give up and pushed forward with his search relentlessly.
依旧没有组合成一个像样的。
Out around the perimeter of the abyss, massive power movements started becoming noticeable. One of the top true god from the Divine Eye clan's upper brass, the third true master, officially decided to meddle by dispatching 2 scout drones to track movements. Not just relying on drones, the third true master even stepped onto the battlefield personally to hunt down and snatch the relics dropped after the destruction of 5 Chaos Master and Luofeng down in the abyss. Responding to this escalating threat, the human camp wasn't just sitting by idly. Their absolute protector, none other than Huge Axe Creator, also stepped right into the abyss himself. Huge Axe Creator's presence had a dual purpose. Besides aiming to locate the treasures, he carried a far more aggressive mission, targeting the god entities of the Divine Eye clan for his attacks. These strikes were meant as a harsh warning, hammering home an absolute message to their race, so they wouldn't dare pick random fights with the human race. After a long and totally exhausting search, Luofeng's efforts finally paid off with the collection of over 600,000 scale fragments. Fusing hundreds of thousands of pieces triggered a resonance reaction, making the extermination godly armor start showing off its true, awe-inspiring physical form as the scales slowly merged together. Luofeng stared at the artifact in pure admiration, admitting that even though the armor was only halfway built, its appearance already radiated an insanely tough and incredibly badass aura. Through extracting deep information stored within the armor's memories, Babata, who had run a scanning process, discovered a mind-blowing fact about the artifact's identity. She explained that historically, the armor's real name was the Crazy Devil Extermination Godly Armor, a defensive masterpiece blessed with absolute physical defense running parallel with the ability to withstand soul-based attacks. Its offensive side was equally lethal. The razor-sharp claws at the tips of the armor's arms were specially made to shred enemies in close combat, while every single scale could be manipulated to shoot out as deadly long-range projectiles. However, behind all this near-flawless power, the armor demanded a terrifying price. Any user who activated the armor would instantly be dragged into an extreme psychological state known as battle madness, a phase where the user would completely lose their sanity, tune everything else out, and be driven solely by pure instinct to hunt down opponents and fight blindly on the battlefield. Hearing the breakdown of this battle madness side effect, Luofeng fell silent and did some deep soul-searching. Even without being under the armor's influence, he looked back on his own past, recalling the times he earned his specific nickname as the Madman. There was a time when he truly sank into a berserk state, completely losing control in the middle of a bloody battlefield storm. That life experience had taught him firsthand that losing his sanity and letting himself get swallowed by rage was an incredibly dangerous spot for a warrior to be in. He firmly held onto the principle that while someone might gain a massive power boost by fighting fiercely with zero fear, a true martial artist must always be able to control their emotions and assess the chaotic battlefield with a cool, clear head to ensure their enemy's defeat. No matter how he weighed it, though, all the crazy risks of the crazy armor were still eclipsed by its raw potential. The flawless combination of close-quarters combat, long-range bombardment, and a practically impenetrable defense system made this armor a supreme treasure that was absolutely worth fighting for and claiming. As a first step, Luofeng set his resolve that he absolutely had to gather and assemble all the fragments into a complete set first. He then told Babata to double-check the database, asking if there was any advanced data detailing the exact procedure or the precise number needed to form a perfectly complete armor frame. That information turned out to be available in deep detail, but the reality written within it left Babata completely shell-shocked. The total number of scales required to form one complete entity of the armor was a whopping 8,999,999 pieces. This mathematical fact was a heavy blow, making Luofeng realize that the 600,000 scales he had worked so hard to collect so far were actually pathetically low and nowhere near his final goal. In another quiet location, 5 Chaos Master's confusion skyrocketed as she realized the glowing connection between her soul and her pride, and Joy armor was continuously dimming, fading right down to its weakest point. This fading energy was undeniably the result of Luofeng spending all his time and energy hunting down armor piece after armor piece tirelessly. The situation outside the abyss was also heating up, considering it wasn't just the third true master making a move. Another true god-level entity named the 6th true master from the Divine Eye clan also charged in, executing a massive search operation within the abyss's borders. The wheels of time kept turning until Luofeng's long grind finally brought him to a crucial milestone. He only needed 2 final scale pieces to completely finish the artifact. Unfortunately, the biggest roadblock hit him right at the finish line. because the signal of those last two decisive scales was totally untrackable within his range of abilities. On top of that, given how long he had spent on this search, Luofeng was firmly convinced that those insanely powerful true god entities racing over to hunt down the treasure could pop up and intercept him at any moment. If he failed to finish constructing the crazy armor in a short amount of time, Luofeng had major concerns that a massive scramble for the loot would erupt among the true god warriors, dragging him back into a fight he just couldn't handle yet. Right in the middle of that despair, Luofeng's communication device unexpectedly received a call from an existence he deeply respected. His master, Zuoshanke, who asked for the exact region coordinates and Luofeng's current position. Luofeng gave an honest report, explaining that he was still trapped at the bottom of the 9th Abyss's labyrinth. Responding to the report, his master delivered a blunt evaluation, stating that with Luofeng's current power level, it would be absolutely impossible for him to escape and make it out of that deadly abyss alive without help. Because of that, Luofeng was quickly ordered to share his exact coordinates, as his master had decided to make the trip and meet him there personally. This news was a totally unexpected blessing. Luofeng had never even entertained the thought that a figure like his master would be willing to step in purely to bail him out. Finally, the highly anticipated moment arrived. The reunion between master and disciple took place right in the pitch-black darkness of the abyss. The moment his master placed a hand on his shoulder, giving him a familiar, friendly pat, Luofeng's memories drifted back to the past. He clearly remembered a time when his master had said that when raising a true disciple, he absolutely didn't care whether the disciple ended up dead or alive. That hardcore principle made the current situation feel super confusing for Luofeng. He just couldn't wrap his head around why his master would willingly come down to pick him up in person. On top of that, his master wasn't just there to pick him up, but actually offered to tag along and help Luofeng track down the last two scale components that had been so damn hard to find. The image of his master, who used to be known for his incredibly strict, rigid, and ruthless attitude, had now totally transformed, feeling more like a caring biological parent sitting right there to support Luofeng. Their expedition moved on to the next phase, leading them away from the fierce storm zone and into an ice plain zone decked out with an aura of eternal frost. The second he set foot on that icy land, Luofeng's intuition suddenly picked up a mysterious calling coming from the power fluctuations dwelling in that spot. However, even though he could feel the vibe of the calling, he was still stuck in confusion because he couldn't detect or pinpoint exactly where the energy source was hiding. Seeing his disciples' confusion, his master took over and started showing off a little demonstration of his magical powers. With precise hand movements, his master carved out a series of glowing golden lines in thin air, manipulating space-time energy until those tendrils of light wove together an illusion of layered mountain ranges. While his hands were weaving that miracle, his master dropped some rare knowledge, explaining that the technique he was demonstrating was a highly advanced, specialized teleportation method. Its function was to phase someone's physical body through dimensional veils and straight into an independent space that was completely hidden behind the borders of real space. That hidden space was designed to be so locked down that it was utterly inaccessible if someone only relied on ordinary exploration or standard teleportation methods. After the activation of his master's teleportation method successfully moved them, the two landed smoothly on an isolated ice plain zone. Right here in this secret spot, Luofeng's senses were finally able to pinpoint the exact location of the two scales that had been hiding so well this whole time. The objects he had been dying to get were actually buried deep under the icy surface, sealed and covered by a massive block of ice that wasn't easy to break through. Firing up his star tower, Luofeng approached the spot and smashed the ice block with his beast god arm. In the very next second, he immediately grabbed the final two scale pieces, letting them get absorbed straight into his armor's system. Right at that moment, the entire array of components fused together, signaling that the frame of the crazy devil extermination godly armor was now perfect and fully complete. Watching the fusion, his master gave genuine praise for the armor's sheer awesomeness, admitting that the quality of such a treasure was definitely not something to sleep on. But beneath its perfect exterior, his master had a sharp eye and spotted several structural damage points inside the armor's internals. Because of that, before Luofeng could use this armor as his defensive gear in an actual battlefield, his master made the wise call to secure the treasure and take it home with him first to undergo repairs until its condition was truly up to standard. In the middle of giving his advice, his master took a moment to share a cosmic secret. He mentioned that in various hidden corners scattered across the 3 most dangerous zones in the universe ocean, it wasn't rare to stumble upon the remnants of ancient inscriptions and ruins from lost civilizations. Based on that priceless intel, his master heavily stressed how important it was for Luofeng to journey out and witness those ancient miracles with his own eyes. This push was given because his master strongly believed that by soaking in the mysteries hidden within ancient ruins, Luofeng's mind would resonate, giving him a massive chance to gain high-level comprehension that would lead him straight to enlightenment and fresh insights. Inside that deserted temple, Luofeng's gaze was locked when he spotted a carved mural depicting a woman standing with her spear. So, what exactly is the mystery behind that carving, guys? Alright, thanks for watching until the very end, and don't forget to keep supporting this channel by leaving a comment, dropping a like, and subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, bye.